land, joepags.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email. It's all right there, plus the live video feed. It's the Joe Pags Show. Glad to have you along for the ride. Really glad to have this guy on. His name is Dean Barker. He is a correspondent over at campusreform.org. Dean, how are you?
Good, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really a pleasure to have you on. You guys do an incredible job at campusreform.org exposing some of the nuttiness that's going on campus. Some of it funny, some of it not very funny at all. We've got some not very funny today as well. But I always appreciate the knowledge that you bring. Let me ask you, where do you go to college?
So I go to Bridgewater College. It's in Northern Virginia. It's about 15 minutes away from JMU, James Madison University.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not very well known. It's a D3 school. Yeah, basically, if you want to do anything, you have to go to Harrisonburg, 15 minutes away.
All right, so it's one of those out in the middle of nowhere, but you can still get there from here. I appreciate you taking the time. There are some stories that we'll get to in a second, but I always like to ask the young reporters when I have you on. You're still in college. You haven't been in class for a long time, I'm assuming. You're probably doing Zoom calls and Microsoft meetings and Skypes and everything else. So what is that like? Are you anxious? Are you raring to go to get back to class? What do your friends say? Is it because you can't congregate? When you're your age, you want to be around other people.
Well, you're certainly right about that. And the way I see it, it's actually, in some ways, it's actually better that we can stay at home because, okay. I mean, obviously when you're in person, you could have to go to a meeting at one time, or you got class another time, and if you want to hang out, you have to make time. Right now, everybody's stuck at their house doing nothing.
Yeah.
So what that does, it actually, if you want to reach out to somebody, you can go right ahead. Now, obviously, it would be better to be in person. There are things that you can do in person that you can't do out of person.
Right.
Like, I don't know, handshaking. I don't think we'll ever be able to do that again.
Oh, breaking bread with people, like having a meal. I mean, maybe hanging out with somebody that you like. You know, I get all that. So that's the hard part. And again, being your age, it's got to be difficult not to have that. Are there any plans at your school to go back to class at all, even with masks on, or still not?
So what we're actually going to do, I think it's ridiculous, but what we're going to do is when we go back, there will be some days where we have class in person, which we'll have masks, we'll have 6 feet apart desks, but then there will be other days where we're in our dorm rooms, just staying in our dorm rooms. We can do class online there. And their explanation was, you know, we want to make sure that we're safe, but we also want to make sure you have the opportunity to be in person. We all know they're lying. We know that if we don't go back to campus, we can't give them $40,000 a year.
Right, and that's really what the deal is. I mean, they have to try to save that money somehow. And I know there was a controversy about whether you'd be getting any money back for the dorms or for housing because it wasn't being used, or for classes because it wasn't being used. And I think that's still to be settled in many places. His name is Dean Barker. You can follow him on Twitter at Dean_Barker. Go and follow him right now from campusreform.org. Let me ask you about these stories. I saw this because we've got a lot of stations in Texas. I'm based in Texas. I know this controversy, but refresh those who are watching and listening what the problem is at a Texas college over the name Ranger as their mascot.
I think the problem, honestly, is fragility, if we want to break it down.
I agree.
But the problem that's going on with this specific mascot is at San Antonio in Texas. You're well known for having the Texas Rangers police force who loyally serve the citizens of the state of Texas.
And they do to this day. They're still part of the DPS, the Department of Public Safety.
God bless
the
them.
Rangers exist, and they do a great job. But suddenly there's controversy. Why?
So the controversy stems from there are some Texas Rangers who back in the day were allegedly oppressive to some Mexicans, Mexican Americans, African Americans, Native Americans, and of that nature. And obviously, we don't condone what they did in any way, shape, or form. The problem isn't there. The problem is when you generalize an entire group of police and say, since some of these people were oppressive, we're going to punish all of them and we're not going to honor their legacy with this mascot. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's a shame because in this day and age, we need more good police officers. We need people to see there are some good officers out there. We need to get rid of the bad. But once we get to the idea where police are bad, they're all bad, then we're going to go into absolute anarchy.
And by the way, the Texas Rangers have done more good than bad. I mean, that's historically correct. And again, they exist today. So you're honoring a police force, men and women that are putting on the uniform every day to go keep us safe, keep us secure, and to stop crime, stop violence, stop uprising. And we just want them to change their name. This is the whole thing right now, right, Dean? I mean, we're just in a period where we just want names changed. I mean, people your age are out there trying to burn down federal courthouses because they want names changed and statues taken down. It's strange. But in your youth, because again I'm old, in your youth, can you understand where they're coming from? I can't understand it.
Well, I understand if somebody did something to my ancestors or my grandmother,
Yeah.
I would be very upset. The problem isn't in taking offense to things that are hurtful to you. The problem is seeing somebody do one bad thing one time and then assuming that anyone who's anything remotely like them
Yeah.
is also bad. And the left is extremely, they say they're against racism, they're against generalizations. We all know that's not the truth. The truth is that they're only against things that offend them.
The left
And we're going to get
generalizes. The left generalizes more than anybody you've ever seen in history. They generalize. You should see when I post something on Twitter or on Facebook. I am now you guys. I am now you people. I'm now you conservatives, you radio hosts, you haters, you fill in the blank. So the generalization always comes from the left. And you're right. Some Rangers did some bad things. Even systemically, they were doing bad things a long time ago. That hasn't happened for a very long time. And the good that's been done in between tells me the Rangers are no longer bad. So the idea that we have to get rid of the name to make some woke person feel better, that's my real problem. Are people of your generation seeing a problem with that too? You're a conservative guy. I mean, obviously there's a problem with that.
I think we see a problem because when is this happening? This happens every 4 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't I mean, obviously it happens on the college campuses. Otherwise, campus reform would be out of business.
True.
The problem is that what they want to address is microaggressions, offensive things, names, statues, and mascots and things of that nature. But when something happens that's actually offensive, actually oppressive, usually happens to conservatives, they actually don't want to do anything. And I'm 100% against oppressing anybody. That's not the problem.
Most people are. Most people are
Yeah.
100% against oppression. And the idea that we're not against oppression is just stupid. And I think they must know that deep down, or they're so indoctrinated by the professors who know it that they don't know. So we could talk about that for 2 hours. Well, let's go to the next one. Again, campusreform.org's Dean Barker, Dean_Barker over on Twitter. Make sure you go follow him, and some great stories. Let's go to the next one now. Students aren't going to accept professors who oppose Black Lives Matter. I don't know of any professors who allegedly propose the idea that the lives of African Americans in this country matter. They may, in fact, oppose, a very small percentage could oppose, the radical Marxist anti-Western nuclear family group, Black Lives Matter. But what is the root of this? They have to accept the group? They have to accept saying it? What is this about?
They basically have to accept anything that the left proposes with no questions asked. And this is what this really boils down to. Well, yeah, let me be very, very clear. I don't think anyone in their right mind is saying that Black lives don't matter. And if they do, whether they're conservative or liberal, they need to get out.
Agreed.
That's not the problem here. The problem here is that when you look at Black Lives Matter and the things that they support, yes, they are pro-Black lives, but that is not all they are for.
Yeah.
You look on their website, when they say which Black lives matter, they say all Black lives matter regardless of religion, sexual orientation, location, and things like that. You want to know what they don't list? They don't say regardless of political affiliation, and that's what this really boils down to. They want to. If you want to donate to them, it takes you right to the Act Blue website. Act Blue, as everybody knows, Act Blue, Act Democrat. So yes, we're all for stopping police brutality towards blacks, but when you look at what they really believe and how they act, I think after the George Floyd shooting, of the murder of George Floyd,
right.
Everybody was upset. And let's do what we can to stop the murder of black people. So we go on and we want to try to support Black Lives Matter. And then we look and see what they really believe in. And I've even heard black people say, whoa, we're not for this. What's all this stuff about the nuclear family, LGBT? I got to tell you, black people are allowed to be conservative.
Not necessarily, not according to that website, but you're right. People have not taken the one extra step. Dean, you could not be more correct, but just go to the website. Read what they're all about. Read what they say their charter and their mission is. It's more about trans rights. It's more about LGBTQXYZ rights. And it's less about all black lives because, as you say, the percentage of blacks who are conservative or Republican is growing in this country, and not a one of them matters. And by the way, even in liberal cities like Chicago, black lives don't matter because 14 people were shot 2 nights ago at a funeral home And I don't see Black Lives Matter marching down the street in Chicago. In fact, I see the mayor blowing it off like there's some gun show loophole that caused that to happen. So you've got a situation where people are forced to glom onto an organization that they don't really even know what they stand for. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, this is simply a tactic of the left. Every 4 years, I mean, you'll hear the saying Black Lives Matter throughout here, but when you really look at the foundation, Black Lives Matter, they only come around every 4 years, and there's a very simple reason for that. Black lives only matter when they can when they can vote for us, is what the left believes.
And the Act Blue angle is really important. In other words, if you donate to Black Lives Matter, that money's being funneled right into the Democrat campaigns of people like Joe Biden, who suddenly had an incredible fundraising quarter, and he never left his basement.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, you look at things like that. They also donate to Bernie Sanders, who's cost the liberals and blacks more money than conservatives ever could.
Right.
And you look at things like if they think that Black Lives Matter, here's what you want to get into. They look at how they want the family to be. We all know in order for a family to function well, you need a strong father and a caring mother. But when they try to disrupt the family structure, you don't have a father and a mother. You usually have a very caring mother who's trying to care for sons, but when you don't have a father in the home, it's going to be very hard for that child to grow up and be
Right.
a normal functioning human being. And the people who really believe Black Lives Matter are the ones who want to help the issues in black communities.
And by the way,
And that's the conservatives.
if you delete the father out of the equation, then the government becomes the father, and then the government can control them. And that's exactly what's going on. It's Dean Barker from campusreform.org. One last one. Campus Reform reporters and conservative reporter received death threats. I'm not surprised by it. I'm sickened by it. But what specifically happened here?
So what happened here was we have a campus correspondent at Syracuse University. Out of concern for her safety, I'm not going to reveal her name.
I know who it is. We've had her on the program, and she's great,
Okay.
by the way. Go ahead.
All right, but yeah, so this student put out, I think, at Thanksgiving, she put out a picture with her and a pumpkin pie saying, quote, cultural genocide. And this is obviously a play on the joke that people make every Thanksgiving. Well, it's not actually a joke, but they talk about however many years ago when Americans first found the land, they killed the Native Americans, things like that. And because of that, they don't want to support Thanksgiving. Well, I'm not going to say that the killing of another human being is okay. What I would say is the Thanksgiving, the holiday, is for a time for people to celebrate with their families and their loved
Exactly.
ones. And that's nobody, I got to be honest, whether conservative, liberal, or moderate, nobody looks at Thanksgiving. Well, actually, the liberals do. They look at Thanksgiving and they think of what happened however many years ago. And that's what you see on the left. They're always trying to find a way to make something political.
And by the way, Native Americans or American Indians sat at the same table with the Pilgrims. They ate together. They were thanking God together. They were thanking each other and those who taught them how to till the land. I mean, the fact that a bunch of American Indians died as this country was being formed is also about how there were wars over the land. And there were some people who weren't very nice who were on that side. There were some people who were very nice who were on that side. And it also jumps out at me very consistently that Native Americans still exist. There wasn't genocide. They weren't wiped off the map. They still exist, and they're part of America. And I'm glad for that. But the idea that you can't show a pumpkin pie and use irony to tell the other side that the way you're acting is stupid, that you'll get a death threat from that, makes me sick.
Yeah, and what also makes me sick is when you look at the fact that they're so upset about the violence that happened towards these people so many years ago. Okay, so why are you going to take that violence and try to put it on a conservative? This lady, she wasn't trying to do anything to say
Right.
we don't like Native Americans or anything like that. And not only that, there were also anti-Semitic remarks that were made towards her
Right.
and another professor at the school. And this is what we see. The left says they're against discrimination and bigotry. No, they're not. They're against people who disagree with them.
Right.
And that's what happens, because if they were really against anti-Semitism and death threats and non-peace, they would be at her defense.
Exactly right. We got to leave it there. It's Dean Barker from campusreform.org, at Dean_Barker over on Twitter. Go follow him now. And Dean, I appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. We're back after this on the Joe Pag Show. Stay right here.